Hi guys, it's Miss King. I'm going to make you a video today while Ellie's napping on adding and subtracting decimals. I had done a video like this earlier this year on fractions. This one is going to be on the decimal adding. I think we did it on adding and subtracting fractions. This one's going to be adding and subtracting decimals. I had a lot of students come tell me that it was very helpful and that I should do it some more. So here you go. I'm going to do it a little bit more for you. So when we add and subtract decimals, it is just like adding and subtracting whole numbers. So if we had the number 27 plus 35, we always start subtracting or adding in your ones place. So we're going to do 7 plus 5, and that's going to equal 12. So we put our 2 down, and we carry our 1. So we put our 2 from that 12 and carry that 10 in my tens place. Now, I added and subtracted. I first start in my ones place because this is the lowest possible place value that I have in my problem. If I had anything past the decimal, that would be smaller than your ones place. I just want us to think about that as I work this problem out. We do 1 plus 2, that equals 3, plus 3, and that equals 6. So my answer to this problem is 62. Now, what if this was a decimal instead of a whole number? What if we had a decimal between the 2 and the 7 and a decimal between the 3 and the 5? This made this 2 and 7/10 and 3 and 5/10. When we add and subtract decimals, like I've said, it is just like adding and subtracting a whole number. It's got just a little bit of differences. We normally subtract in our ones place. That's where we start. But since we now have a 10th place, that number is smaller than a ones place. So we're going to still start with 7 minus 5. And that equals, not 7 minus, 7 plus 5. And that equals 12. So we put our 2 and we carry our 1. 1 plus 2, 3, plus 3, 6. The biggest difference that you have when you add or subtract decimals is you have to go back to your problem and see how many place values you went past the decimal adding or subtracting. Well, in this case, we only did 1. So I'm going to go to my answer and I'm going to make it have 1 decimal place. So I will put my decimal between the 6 and the 2, making it 6 and 2/10. Now, what about when you subtract? Is it the same way? Well, let's start with a normal problem. 78 minus 25. We always start in the ones place, again, because it is the lowest place value that I have in these two numbers. So I do 8 minus 5, and that would equal 3. And then I would do 7 minus 2, and that would equal 5. So my answer to this problem would be 53. But what if these were decimals instead of whole numbers? If I had a decimal between the 7 and the 8 and the 2 and the 5, making the 7 and 8/10 minus 2 and 5/10, would I do it the same way? Yes. You would still start with 8 minus 5, not because this is in the ones place, but because it is smaller than the ones. It is in the 10th place, the smallest place value that I have in this number. So if I did 8 minus 5, that would equal 3. And then I would do 7 minus 2, and that would equal 5. The difference is just like the addition problem. I go back and I check how many place values that I add or subtract. 1. So my decimal would go in between these two numbers, making only 1 decimal place. So my answer will now be 5 and 3/10. Well, what if we had one decimal that had 2 places, making it go into the hundreds? And then we had one that only went into the tenths. That's a tricky one. Here are the rules when you have this type of problem. You need to make sure that you always line up your decimals. You have to make sure these decimals are sitting in the same spot, because if not, you're going to be subtracting the wrong place values together. Since this problem has an extra place value than the other one, we have to put an imaginary number right here, something that we used to call a placeholder. We put a 0 right there because 2 5/10 is equivalent to 2 50 hundredths. And then we would just do it the same exact way. Since this is now the smallest place value, I would subtract this number first in the hundredths. 9 minus 0 is 9. Sorry, almost said 0. Been wrong. So it's 9, and then you do 8 minus 5, 3. 7 minus 2, 5. Now I've subtracted 1, 2 place values. So I will have 2 decimal places, making this 5 39 hundredths. We keep moving on. So we just subtracted a number that we did not have to regroup. We always know about regrouping or borrowing. What if we had a number that we had to borrow? Would it still be the same way? Yes. First, you would start in the smallest place value. Since this is 65 minus 29, my smallest place value is my ones place. 5 minus 9. If I had 5 things, could I give 9 away? No. So I need to go next door and borrow 10 from my neighbor. So I'm going to go to my 6. I'm going to mark it out, put it at a 5, and I'm going to take the 10 I just took from my 6 and add it to my 5, making my 5 15. 15 minus 9, 6. 5 minus 2, 3. So my answer to this problem would be 36. What if these two numbers had decimals? Well, it would work out the same way. This is now 6 5/10 and 2 9/10. I would start in my tenths place because it is the smallest. I would find out that I could not take 9 away from 5. Borrow, just like I did before, making this a 5 and this a 15. And do 15 minus 9, 6. 5 minus 2, 3. The only difference is I go back, I've done one place, so I will have 1 decimal, making this 3 6/10. Again, what if I had to borrow, or not borrow, where's it at? What if I had to borrow with 3 digits? You would work it out the same way. Can't take 5 away from 4, so I have to borrow from my 6, making this 4 a 14 and this 6 a 5. Now I can do 14 minus 5, which is 9. Oh, then I come across another problem. I can't take 7 from 5, so I make this 5 a 15, and this 9 becomes an 8. 15 minus 7 is 8. 8 minus 2, 6. Now I have to go back. How many place values did I use? 2. So I'm going to count 1, 2, decimal. So this makes this answer 6 89 hundredths. Again, I'm going to keep telling you, please do not misalign your decimals. Your number would be completely different if you lined it like this. Do you see how 1 decimal is further away from the other? This is a big no-no. You need to line it up where your decimals are right on top of each other. Same thing with subtraction. Your number is going to be completely wrong if you do it this way. See how the decimals are not lined up? This is the correct version. Do you see them lined up now? Y'all are going to do great at this.